Yeah. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to session one of our preventive care grounds. I am Princess Lisa Kofi, and I will be moderating this session. We're delighted to have Kevin Bernadt with us today, presenting on lessons learned in teaching to a diverse audience among deaf and disabled attendees. Now, Kevin Bernard is a deaf and neurodiverse professional specializing in lifestyle medicine and integrative healthcare with a dual bachelor's degree in biology and applied science, an MBA, MSPS from Rochester Institute of Technology, and certifications in health coaching and exercise science. He brings a unique perspective to preventive care. His diverse career includes work at the EPA, Kings County Department of Community and Human Services, and consultant for the deaf community at University of Colorado at Boulder. After teaching in Ethiopia and Taiwan, Kevin found interest in diverse healing traditions, leading to his current pursuit of a DrPH in preventive care at Loma Linda University, alongside naturopathic and Eastern Asian medicine training. Kevin's passion stems from personal experiences from premature birth to navigating healthcare after a brain injury at 15. Now, these challenges fuel his vision to create an inclusive, trauma-informed approach to healthcare for more marginalized communities. Currently serving on the Loma Linda City Council Revenue Committee and the university's Environmental Sustainable Committee, Kevin advocates for equitable access to holistic healthcare. His goal is to establish a clinic blending preventive care, lifestyle medicine, nutrition, and complementary therapies, eventually expanding internationally to serve underrepresented populations worldwide. Kevin, thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate that. I feel very honored. All right. So I'm trying to make sure that the PowerPoint is shared correctly. Would you like me to start the recording or has it already been started yet? How would you like to use it? Would you like to use your copy of the PowerPoint to share the screen or would you like myself to share the screen?
You can share your screen.
Okay, let me go ahead and try that. All right, great. I think you're all set for right now. Are you able to see the slides?
Yes, but it needs to be in presenter mode.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Do
So,
you
yeah.
Go to the bottom.
the bottom?
Go to the bottom and then choose the fourth icon there.
Yeah, the icon next to the slide bar, to the
Two
left of
more.
the slide bar.
That's the one.
Yeah, right, that one. Click on that one.
And now try to double click there.
So the challenge I'm having right now is if I have this pulled up, I'm not able to see the interpreter. I'm only able to see the PowerPoint and my notes. So I'm only able to see the slide. If I put it in presentation view, it's a presentation view for myself and not for you. So I need to figure out how I can make a presentation view for you, but I also want to be able to see my notes and the interpreter. It's full screen right now. And
So that means you only have one. So that means you only have one screen.
Yeah, I'm just using the one. I just have one screen right now.
Well, maybe leave it as it is currently. Maybe we'll have to do it this way.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So even though it's only displaying like this, unfortunately, it says protective view, and I'm not really sure how to even change that. Okay, that's a little bit better. And right now it doesn't show the notes, but I do believe I can go ahead and without them. So we'll go ahead and use it this way. This is an improvement from what it was before. I am ready. All right, so hello everybody. Today I will be presenting about 10 lessons learned in teaching to diverse, deaf, and disabled audiences, including neurodivergent and learning disability attendees. The reason why this isn't so important is because diversity in learning styles and access needs comes in play in many different situations. There are so many people who have been marginalized and have trauma based on their marginalization, and people who are disabled and people who are not disabled through accessing different systems. And so being able to provide an inclusive approach will empower all learners through equity. And on this slide is showing you the sign for hello. So I would like for you to copy so we can learn the sign together. Hello. I want to make sure I see everybody participating. This is a sign for hello. This is an easy sign, but it is something that everybody needs to know how to sign. Hello. Hello, everybody. But even though it's a simple sign, it is something that works and can be used when you're just talking with people who are disabled and deaf. Let me see, I'm having some technical difficulties. Give me just a second. Just trying to get my notes pulled up. Okay, next slide. Well, it looks to be working now. So lesson 1 is one size does not fit all. We have a variety of learners with a variety of needs, and flexibility is the key to be able to meet all of their needs. Sometimes you will be getting this information in advance, where the school will let you know that there is a student that has a specific need and how to accommodate their need. And sometimes you will be given that at the last moment. Flexibility is the key to be able to customize the methods and materials to their abilities. So to be able to adapt your methods and your materials to their needs is important, because at times you will be given advance notice of these needs and accommodations, and then at times it will be last minute, where you will not have that advance notice and you have to customize it on design. And also a universal design, when you establish your methods and materials, benefits everyone. And I don't have this in the PowerPoint, but in my notes, I want to explain about universal design and what the benefits are for that. So I'll let you go ahead and read that. I apologize. I thought that the interpreters had the notes to be able to read the slide and some of the formal definitions. But they don't have that. Okay, then I guess we will go ahead and skip that part and we will move on.
Yeah, just confirming that the interpreters don't have the notes on that.
Lesson 2 is communication access is a human right. Providing ASL interpreters, captions, and even tactile options for people who are deafblind is a human right. And it is important to be able to give them that prep access in advance, depending on what their individual needs are. It is not something that should be viewed as an obligation or requirement. It is something that, or an optional, it is something that should be a requirement to treat everybody with equality. And it's not just something that is nice to do for them, it is a human right that they deserve. The sign that we see here on this slide is for communication. So if you put your hands as the letter C, and it's coming from your mouth. All right, let me see everybody. If I can see everybody's sign, communication. All right, let's see some participation. If everybody can sign communication. Communication. And make sure, I know in the picture it looks like it's static, but it is a sign that requires some movement. Lesson number 3 is visual and kinesthetic learning work best. When you use visuals and incorporate moving, hands-on tools, that would provide a better learning environment for your learners. This can include charts, diagrams, role plays, etc. So it will help people who are deaf, as well as people with ADHD and other learners who require more of a visual mode of instruction. So the sign that you see here is visual. So can you copy me, please? Sign this sign, visual. It's not the sign for peace. Your hands are facing towards you. Visual. Great. Next slide. Lesson 4. Trauma-informed practices help everyone. They create a safety and predict environment, avoiding sudden changes that can provoke and trigger more trauma in your learners. So be able to have a structure and predictability will help your learners and to be able to focus on the key points without having everything changed at the last minute. I understand things do come up once in a while, but making sure that that is communicated with them so that they can prepare in advance rather than be caught off guard. So giving them that advance warning will help them reduce their triggers and also respects their autonomy and consent and helps their learning process. It's important to keep in mind that the key points are necessary for your instruction. And so the sign here that we see in the slide is important. If you can sign it with me, important. Just like this. All right. Important, yes. Next slide. Lesson number 5 is simplifying language without dumbing it down. American Sign Language should be considered as any other language as a language, and using clear and plain English will help all of your learners, not only the deaf learners, but other learners that are disabled as well. Keeping it clear and concise helps your information become more understandable for your learners. We understand at times it is important to include new jargon and new vocabulary, but using that in conjunction with visuals will help them to be able to understand the concepts and the jargon and be able to retain it for a longer period of time. And structure content logically. In this slide, we see the sign for new, as in new information. So you would do like this, new. Do it with me, new. Let's do it together. New. New. Next slide. Lesson number 6 is the importance of understanding about patience and wait time. Processing for each individual varies. Some are able to retain it quicker than others, and some require some processing time. Just remember that silence and pausing is okay. This gives your learners time to process the information that they have just received, to analyze it, and to finally be able to retain it. If you give them too much information, it will be hard for them to be able to make that connection. So patience is key. Like we see here, the sign on the slide is patience. Let's do this together. I want to see a little bit more participation, if I can. Patience. Great. Lesson number 7. In order to gain trust, it is important to include a representation of the communities. Involve your deaf and disabled educators and participants. It's really important to be able to build that connection and also normalize their lived experience and work together as much as possible. It is also important to be able to show role models that the participants feel connected to be able to foster more connection and more trust. So the sign that we see here on the slide is for connection. It's just like this. Let's do this together. Connection. Connection. And this is important, connection. So now you learn 2 signs from this slide. Important, new, connection. All right, let's do this together. Important, new, connection. Great. Lesson number 8 is cultural competency is non-negotiable. It is important to respect each individual's culture and to be able to understand the importance of developing cultural competency in each of them as much as possible, whether it be deaf culture, disability, justice, etc. And understand that it is non-negotiable. It also helps you recognize their intersectionality of each individual, especially within the disability community and diverse participants, be able to recognize the intersectionality that maintains who they are for each individual. And I was hoping that the interpreters would have the notes. The interpreters don't have the notes. Okay.
Yes, and so the other interpreter does have the notes. He's asking to go ahead and read for this slide the notes. So it says, if possible, learn some basics of deaf culture and disability justice. That helps recognize intersectionality, especially amongst the diversity of human beings. That allows for avoiding assumptions.
Great, thank you so much. So the sign that we see here on the slide is for intersectionality. Let's go ahead and sign it together. Might require a little bit of practice, but intersectionality. You can imagine the 2 identities merging together and becoming a ball of one person. Intersectionality. Great. Next slide. It's important intersectionality, I agree. Lesson 9 is use multimodal instruction. Teach the different concepts through different modes. For example, use a visual, verbal, and hands-on mode to be able to make it more probability for the retention of your students in the information that you are trying to teach. Include movement, color, analogies. These are just a few examples that you can include. The sign that we see here on the slide is for many or multi. So let's do this together. Multi. Multi or many. Many important intersectionalities for communication. Lesson 10. Learners are your co-teachers. You can ask your students and your learners to share their experiences for you to be able to understand and learn more about their community and empower them to use their voice. It's important to be able to give them a chance to be able to use their voice and to be able to learn more about their cultures. Sometimes there will be questions that will pop up during the middle of your presentation, and use that as a learning opportunity to adapt as you go and to value the input that they are asking, even if it happens to disrupt the flow of your thoughts. Many times they will ask you about certain topics, but this, of course, is something that we need to adapt to while we're in the middle of our instruction mode. So the sign that we see here on the slide is for question. Let's do this together. Question. Question. It starts with a 1, and then you draw a question mark in the air. Question. In summary, these are the 10 lessons for deaf and neurodiverse audiences and how to best adapt to their specific needs. We've covered strategies from adaptability, communication access, visual language with plain information, also utilizing patience, strategies, connection, and providing as much multimodal collaboration presentations as possible to enhance the learning activities of all of your students, and including universal design in all of your courses would be a great way to make sure that everybody is included. And also, I can give an example right now of one of the signs, and I'm going to ask the interpreter to help me. If everybody can go ahead and watch the interpreter and see how they sign these following words. We have a list of about 5 words here that I'm going to ask the interpreter, 6 words that I'm going to ask the interpreter to sign. And then let's go ahead and copy. The first word is summary. So you would sign it like this. Can everybody sign it? Summary. The second word is concise. Concise, which again is the same sign, concise. Summary or concise, it's the same sign. Abstract. And there are different meanings for abstract. Well, one of the signs and one of the meanings is like this, similar to summary and concise, abstract. Succinct. Succinct is our next word. Again, using the same sign. Let's sign it together. Succinct. Compile. Next word is compile. Again, same sign. Compile. And the last word is wrap up. Wrap up. Again, you would use the same sign for wrap up. So you can understand one sign has so many different English words that can pair with it, which is why it's so important to be succinct and adaptable and multimodal with all of your instructions, and those are called homophones. Now, with that understanding, I would like to say thank you, and I will open up the floor for any questions or any thoughts or any ideas that you have.
Thank you so much, Kevin. That was a very educational presentation. I really loved it. Do we have any questions? I have a few. Sure thing, Dr. Beeson.
So if one symbol of hand movement is 6 different words, how does the interpreter choose which one is most appropriate in that particular situation?
That's where professional interpreters need to be used to be able to make that correct selection of the word. And of course, it would depend on context and skills. So you have to have the right interpreter for the right situation. For example, I am here at my doctoral studies program, and the interpreters that I have working with me have to be knowledgeable in this area, also with the linguistics, to be able to make sure that they make the right selection with voicing for me. If you have an interpreter that is not familiar with this field, there will be a lot of misinterpretations that happen, and unfortunately that happens when you use not qualified interpreters, or some people who hire the interpreters are not skilled in selecting the right interpreters. I would also say that with interpreters, their skill set is very nuanced. A lot of the interpreters will go into programs where they have degrees, and then they have a even further along continuing educational training where they specialize in certain fields of interpretation. So it is a really rigorous program and process that they have to go through. Hopefully that answers your question.
Well, that was going to be my other question. How do they gain skill in being able to adequately or accurately choose the correct word if many are options? How do they actually get that training to know that they're improving?
So similar to any other profession, is always an ongoing skill set that needs to be continued to be trained, to continue to pursue more education. Interpreters are always learning, just like any other profession. So there are not a lot of people who are in my level, the doctoral level, that require interpreters. So we have to make sure the interpreters that we select have gone through the programs, have gone through education, have the certifications to be able to match somebody at my level. To be able to find somebody is not very easy, but of course it depends on your audience. And there are sometimes there are miscommunications can happen, but it's usually because the interpreters have been trained and have studied this for many years.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a few questions, Kevin. So, how do you approach the challenge of appropriate wait time in group settings where learners may have, widely varying processing needs?
That's a great question. In regards to wait times, as a neurodivergent person, we call it time blindness. That's the term that I have seen used. And by that, with neurodivergent people, many times we don't have an understanding of time in a similar way that you do. So we have to understand maybe what's the difference between 1 hour, 5 minutes, 60 seconds. Somebody who has ADHD or who is neurodivergent as myself will struggle with that concept. So obviously when we're processing the information, we're able to absorb the information and then try to be able to retain it. But we do need time, we need pauses, we need breaks that we can use to process information to be able to retain it and understand a little bit more. Again, some of the research shows that you can pause for 30 seconds. Some research says 1 minute. It is not a one-size-fits-all standard amount of time, but it's something that you just follow. We usually say the rule of 3. So the universal design is something that I adopt for myself personally, and I would encourage you to adapt as well. And the rule of 3 says, give the information within 3 points, pause, go back to point 1, expand on it, go back to point 2, expand on it, go back to point 3, expand on it, pause again before you would introduce 3 new key points and repeat the process. And in between those pauses, and you would pause for, again, a few seconds, up to a minute, give them time to be able to process the information that they just saw, and then using visuals, as I mentioned, with charts and pictures and graphics will help.
Okay, that's really great. I actually probably use that for one of my lectures, if anything. And also, how have you personally adapted your teaching style based on lesson number 10 about learners being co-teachers? Was there a time when, a student's feedback dramatically changed your approach to teaching?
That is a great question. I really appreciate that question. You're bringing me down memory lane when I was teaching for a summer program. I was teaching at a specific program, and I remember at that class we had students that would interrupt my instructional period to be able to ask me questions. They'd constantly asking me more and more questions. And that experience was the first time when I really understood how students can become co-teachers and the importance of being able to allow them to ask questions in the middle of the lecture and be able to use that as part of your instruction and use that as part of the information sharing opportunity.
Okay.
So usually what I have found that has worked for me, I will hold off on my presentation. I will listen to their question, and then usually I will respond by saying, oh, that's something that we'll answer in the next slide or in a couple slides. Or if it's something that we're not going to be covering today, I will make sure that I share that with them as well and ask them to maybe hold off until the end. Usually it's a quick response just to know that we have heard their question and that we will be answering them and that they're not being ignored. And so it's important to make sure that they know that their voice is being heard and that they are being empowered to use it. And also to be able to adapt to their feedback. There are sometimes students will say, I don't understand this image that you have on the slide. Can you please explain it? So taking the time to be able to recognize what their needs is and to be able to adapt and meet that need right then and there, and then go from there. And of course, it depends on what the instructional time you have, but making sure that everybody stays on the right track. I appreciate that question.
Yeah, thanks so much. Okay. And very lastly, what advice will you give to institutions that want to, move beyond basic ADA compliance towards, a truly inclusive and equitable learning environment?
One of the challenges that I have learned, including here in Loma Linda, that I've seen quite often, is there are different levels of institutions, so to say. And not all of the levels in this institution have exposure to the ADA or people with disabilities. I can give you an example of a vice president or another person, a CEO, that does not have understanding about universal design. Maybe they were never a teacher in the first place. They just went up the scale in the admin rung. And so to be able to have people at the high levels that have this understanding as well, and that are knowledgeable about the ADA and the different disabilities and adaptations that the learners need. I've seen people, including here at Loma Linda, people at the higher levels that do not have this understanding, and they don't understand the equitable things that need to be provided. And so maybe somebody at an instructional level will understand that, but the upper higher levels will not understand it. So make sure that everybody in the role has the same knowledge and ability. And I can give you one recent example here at Loma Linda. They decided that they wanted to expand their pediatric medical office, which I agree. I think it is a great effort. I completely understand what they are going to, but I was listening to their presentation, and during that presentation, I realized that nobody at that level, I believe it was a faculty or a vice president, discussed anything about accessibility or the ADA or disabilities. They didn't even think about something as far as a button to open the door for somebody who's a wheelchair user. So they had designed this beautiful clinic, this beautiful building, and never considered accessibility at all. And that should be something that's involved in the design stage at the very beginning. So having people at the higher levels, administrators, etc., vice presidents, that will be able to not only be knowledgeable, but be able to represent those different issues, that is very, very important. And not only ADA, but DEI is an important thing that has representation at those levels as well. So having that conversation is really important. And sometimes it comes from the bottom up, and other times it comes from the top down.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Great. Do we have any more questions from the audience? No? Well, thank you, Kevin, for sharing your valuable
Dr.
insight.
DeSantos, you don't have any questions?
You asking me? No.
You did such a wonderful job, Kevin. Trust me, everyone is just dumbfounded right now. Great job, Kevin. Great job. And again, thank you for sharing your valuable insights on, teaching diverse, deaf and disabled audiences. I believe your 10 lessons provided, practical strategies that will help us all create more inclusive and effective learning environments. Okay. The examples and visuals you shared truly embody, the multimodal approach you advocate for. So I really love that. And to everyone who joined us today, thank you for your participation and thoughtful engagement. We hope you apply these lessons in your own educational and professional setting. Please join us next Thursday at 4 p.m. for our next Preventive Care Grounds, Session 2, featuring Lydiane Cordero, who will be presenting on the Loma Linda Light Facilitator Training Program. We look forward to seeing you all, and have a good night. Thank
you, everybody. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you so much, Brandon. Thank you so much, Elena. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.